everyone, and welcome to another Star Trek Online video. So, it's been a while since I've made one, but I've come up with a very interesting build for the D4x pilot raider. And yeah, I thought I'd wanted to share this. So I picked this for my event reward because I felt like maybe a smaller raider thing. Usually I fly bigger ships, and it's the only bird of prey, I think, with 5 forward weapons in the game, which is kind of sad. And honestly, I don't mind the look. I know it's not like the most popular ship out there, but I think it looks decent, and I like how the wings wiggle and so on when you perform pilot maneuvers, so there is that. But let's get into the build, because this build is weird. Now, let's have a look at the ship and the build itself. And you might already be gasping or chuckling, or maybe you're just confused, because I'm running 4 torpedoes in my front weapon slots on a ship that does not even have command seating. But trust me, you don't really need concentrate firepower. Concentrate firepower is a great skill, Mike. But it's to deal with big targets, and you have plenty of ways to deal with big targets. And this build does like over 500,000 DPS, and it's not optimized in any way that the traits could use some work and so on. So trust me, this works. Might not look like it at first glance, but there is method to this madness. And the first thing that I'd like to point out is, you might have already seen, I'm running Isomex, but Isomex with torpedo damage. Now you could easily run like fleet consoles, like exploiters or the locators with torpedo damage. The critical chance obviously would benefit all of your weapons, the torpedoes as well. Weapon power does nothing for your torpedoes. The weapon power purely exists for that one dual beam bank, which also is here for the set bonus, the Pavan Omni and the Hexa cannons. Now you might know Hexa cannons are a very strong experimental weapon, and I mean they are an energy weapon, they want some weapon power. So there we go. The thing with this build is that it combines sort of a little bit of energy damage with torpedoes and with some exotics. And mostly I always like gloved energy weapons in this game because I think they look cool. And so I get my energy weapon fix because I get Hexa cannons, which shoot from the wings. I get the dual beam bank, which shoots from the top hard points here, which looks pretty cool. And then I get plenty of torpedoes that just carpet bomb the area. Now, in my aft weapon, usually would run mines, but the Pavan Omni is just really good. Not because of the damage itself, but the resonance charges, they are just great, right? They do a lot of damage. Also, I have very few energy weapons, which means weapon power drain is barely existent, which is also pretty good at keeping weapon power high and keeping those weapons firing at full power. I have like the devices for some more power. So yeah, now let's go a little bit more into the details and the entire build here. So I'm running 2 pieces of the revolutionary set, which is more like known for a science set, but I do have some consoles and some science damage that profits from it. And then I'm running 2 pieces of well, the discovery for the regeneration bonus, right? So I have shield and engines discovery, and I have deflector and warp core from the revolutionary set. This is like it's in Matt's market these days, and it's an old event set. So the 4 torpedoes that I'm running are like the enhanced biomolecular, the neutronic torpedo, the dark matter quantum, so those 3 are reputation, and then I'm running the particle emission because I'm leaning a little bit into science now. I'm not entirely certain yet if those are the 4 best to run. I might replace one or so. I might throw in the gravimetric torpedo, maybe switch one of them out for them, because that should work very well with the sciencey part of this. But we will see. As I said, this is still kind of a work in progress. But even this work in progress already is more than capable of dealing with every elite content in the game. So yeah, we have the wide angles here for the set bonus, and I'm also running fire at will. You might have already seen that down there, and that's because of the twin tactical matrices, but it's also because, fire at will actually benefits both the dual beam bank and the Omni, right? Because I'm running fire at will, This means that I'm actually getting quite good use out of the resonance charges that are spread everywhere. And yeah, it buffs the damage from that beam bank, which runs at high weapon power, so under firing mode. So, you know, I'm getting a lot of use out of that too. Now, obviously, the experimental weapon doesn't profit from firing modes, but as I said, it profits from weapon power. So yeah, I've already mentioned the Isomax. I have the particle conversion matrix here. It gives energy and exotic damage. It's mostly also here for the shield resistance. I'm thinking about replacing this, but this ship is rather squishy, right? And the shield resistance really helps you survive, and the, exotic and energy damage isn't wasted, and people usually shoot me, so it might be, it's not bad. I'm just not sure if it's the best choice here just yet. I have the custom power matrix from the last year's winter event ship. The recharge helps. Together with Boimler and Ruin of Our Enemies to keep my cooldowns down. And also, weapon firing cycle haste is, if I remember correctly, this actually applies to the experimental weapon. And of course, I do have some beam weapons in here, and then there is the crit severity and critical chance, just a good console overall with weapons. I have the Proton Eruptor module. This is from the Dyson Science Destroyer, the Klingon one. It's a console that does quite a lot of damage. And obviously it leans in the exotic part of this ship. I am running high ox. I have not the highest amount of particle gen, but still I have quite a few. And this performs really well. I have the Bovin console for the cooldown reduction. I run the Fleet Power Network array. Now this might raise a few eyebrows because there aren't really enough weapons for the haste, because this does not haste experimental weapons. It does haste my dual beam bank, and it does haste my Omni Beam, and those two things probably wouldn't be enough. However, it gives free high yields. So every 3 seconds, there's a 60% chance to play one of the free firing modes, right? Overload, rapid fire, or high yield. And with high cooldown reduction, you can keep the console basically permanently going. So this will throw in some free high yields and who doesn't enjoy some high yields on a torpedo build? Combined with the few energy weapons that profit from the haste, I felt like this was a worthwhile addition. And I don't really have another source of high yield on this because I'm running spread otherwise, because my torpedoes are really just there for fun AoE effects. And as I've said, right, I can deal with like big targets a lot easier with just like the Proton Eruption. I have the Chronophage, the Premium Chronophage, right? This is a powerful console. I would run this on every ship, no matter if you're exotic energy or torpedo based. It disables the shields, which is obviously a nice bonus for a torpedo build. But the amount of damage this outputs, it's just really insane, and the console is incredibly cheap, so my personal advice, just run this on everything. There is the Locus for crit chance, shield pen, and of course it provides the 3-piece set bonus, which gives 3 torpedoes, which is nice on a torpedo build. We have the dynamic power, the DPRM. An expensive console, but it helps with survival and it helps with some bonus damage. Now I could also be running there is the one console from the flagship set, right, which is not quite as powerful, but that gives also like damage and resistance, so that would be a cheap alternative. Here we have the Micro Quantum Torpedo Phalanx. This is from the same ship that has the Hexa cannons in it. And it's a very strong console on any ship, even on an energy weapon ship. It just launches a lot of torpedoes, and the torpedoes even debuff the enemy's resistance, so there is that. Now the passive on it is mostly just weapon power when you like enter combat, which, you know, on this ship isn't like wasted, so there is that. And then we have, of course, the Covert Warhead module. This one reduces the shared torpedo cooldown to 0.5 seconds on a ship with pilot maneuvers. And look at that, I have pilot maneuvers. I don't have command, right? But honestly, I feel like this is like the more important part for like a torpedo spam. 0.5 seconds shared torpedo cooldown is just, you know, amazing. Which also brings me to the duty officers, because I'm running actually 3 projectile weapon officers, and each of those has a 20% chance to improve the recharge time by 5 seconds on my torpedoes. So every time I fire a torpedo, I have 3 times 20% chance to improve the recharge. And I obviously have 4 torpedoes that fire very quickly, so there are a lot of ways for this to proc. And let's just say this leads to a lot of torpedo spam. There is a trait that I don't have from one of the logbox ships, which would also be very nice, and then I could like replace some of those projectile weapon officers with maybe the crit ones or so. But honestly, this just works really well. I also have like a T-head for some cleansing. I have a gravimetric scientist for my gravity well. And they have a damage control engine, which could probably replace with something else for the emergency powers, because honestly, like, my cooldown reductions are pretty well handled, at least in combat, right? It still helps if I wanna like start cycling before the battle starts, I guess. But as I've said, like, there are still like plenty of ways to improve this build. So I think next up are the bridge officer stations, and then we'll finish this off with the traits, right? So bridge officer stations, I am running a gravity well 3. Now this is the nice part about having so much universal seating. You can like really equip this towards your needs, and gravity well 3 is just a very nice skill. It even does some DPS, right? At this point I'm running this with, which you will see later, the improved gravity well, so I can keep this up permanently, and I'm running a lot of torpedo spreads, and some of those torpedoes also have effects that they leave behind, so I can group the enemies nicely together and then just torpedo them to oblivion. I'm running Photonic Shockwave for unconventional systems. Photonic Shockwave is one of the better uncon triggers, to be honest, because it only has a 30-second shared cooldown. Well, one of the better uncon triggers from science, right? So then I have Clean Getaway, a good uncon trigger, and I have a Tractor Beam, which is an uncon and also triggers one of my traits, as you'll see later. So that's... I'm getting a lot of use, I think, out of that universal science pilot here. Then for my tactical, I obviously have a Torpedo Spread 3, I have a Beta for some debuff, and I run Fire at Will with Entwined Tactical Matrices. So essentially, I'm giving Fire at Will to my dual beam bank and my Omni Beam, which obviously helps those two do more damage, but I'm also getting like the 3 torpedo spreads in there through them, so this is like doubly useful, which I like. That's very nice. Yeah, the better the spread. We have Camo Sight 2. Camo Sight 2 is obviously a nice enhancer for my weapons, for some... yeah. You see, energy weapons have a 10% chance to trigger, but projectiles will always cause explosions, right? And as you might have seen, I have a lot of explosions, so... Camo Sight does rather well here. I have Heisenberg for the uncon, which is a good uncon with a low cooldown. Then we have emergency power to auxiliaries and emergency power to engines, because I'm using some auxiliary-based stuff, and this buffs my science part of the ship, like the destabilized proton eruption, for example. So that's very nice engines, and they also help me with the crit severity trait. Then I have a hazard emitters, because hazard emitters clears hazards, and there are some very dangerous hazards out there. But let's have a look at the traits, and let's start with the Starship traits, right? So I have not the best for torpedo builds, because I've never really looked that much into it, and this is a work in progress, I would say, right? But I just wanted to share this build in its current form, and as I've said, it does like over 500,000 DPS, so it's already performing pretty well. Now we have Angle the Bow. It's from the ship where the hexacannons come from. How was it called? Achilles or so? I always forget those names. I'm sorry. But it's just a projectile trait that I had from other stuff. So Not too bad. I have entwined tactical matrices, as mentioned before. I'm running ruins of our enemies. I have this as an account-wide unlock, and I run this on essentially everything. It's a very expensive trait to get, but it's bonus all damage, so it benefits my science, it benefits my torpedoes, it benefits my energy weapons. And this ship does a lot of AoE killing, so you get some stacks there. Keep in mind, this will rarely stack up to the full 100 depending on what mission you are doing, but you know, it provides a nice bonus, and there is also the recharge on every 50 feet, which helps together with like the Winter Console and Boimler to keep my cooldowns down. Then we have Ship of the Line. Ship of the Line just gives crit severity, and if you want to use Ship of the Line, you really want to cycle 2 emergency powers, because the bonus will stack up and it lasts like the buff lasts like 30 seconds, right? So if you have 1 emergency power, you can only use it every 30 seconds, so you just always stay at 20% crit severity. But once you have 2 emergency powers, you essentially use an emergency power every 15 seconds, and then it starts stacking up to a 50% maximum. So after a little bit in combat, I'll have just 50% crit severity, which is pretty neat. Rapid emitting armaments, that's a hilarious trait that has killed me myself a couple of times, so I mean, you might be familiar with that one. It's essentially if you truck the beam something, you get bonus torpedo damage, which works very well on this build, and you get 3 heavy plasma torpedoes. You just probably don't want to be too close to the end, right? Then we have the improved gravity well, because, you know, Gravity Well is a nice skill, and I'm running Gravity Well 3, so I'm getting even more out of it. And then especially improved quick system is something that I'm contemplating switching out for something else. I'll have to have a look at what other interesting traits there are to get out there. It just gives some more critical chance and severity. And once again, it's a trait that you only want to run with 2 emergency systems, because then you have permanent uptime. I mean, it's permanently 3% crit chance and 15% severity. It's not bad, it's just like not that exciting, I guess. So yeah, those are the Starship traits. Reputation traits, I'm running high Ox, so I'm running auxiliary power configuration offense, I'm running magnificent firepower for more weapon damage, and then I'm just running the crit stuff. Now, Tyler's isn't that exciting on a ship with so little hull. It's 2.4% crit chance, right, while, for example, Precision gives 5. I mean, also Tyler's isn't upgraded yet. I'm almost at tier 6 discovery, but not quite on this character. It will be a little bit more. I'll have to think if I'll replace it. But crit just stacks really well. Why not? Now for the personal space traits, I do have a good day to die, so that I can use go down fighting at any time. I also have last ditch effort for more resistances, because this ship is squishy. I have ablative shell, which also helps a little bit with survival. Then I have harmonic shielding, which this is a trait that a lot of people seem to ignore. It's one of the most budget, but it's a very amazing survival trait that is very cheap. Should put it like this, right? 2% of maximum shields restored every 1 second, which essentially means 1% of your shield every second. And this scales with allies. Now, it also scales with some like bigger allies that you can summon in. If you have like, it won't scale with your hangar pets, but if you have some summons for bigger pets, that might work with that. And obviously, if you are in a TFO, you'll have a team there, right? If you have like 5 team members, well, if you have like 4 team members or a group of 5, it will already be at like 10%. And the maximum would be 20%, right? This is like just pretty good of... you will notice a difference, let's put it like that, when it comes to shield healing, right? And considering that it's... I mean, the prices vary, but sometimes you can get this like for a couple of million on the exchange. And the survivability it adds is noticeable, in my opinion. There is Boimler, of course, for the cooldowns. There is unconventional systems. There is intelligence agent attaché, which helps reduce captain ability recharge. There is fragment of AI tech. The energy bonus damage isn't that relevant on this, as I've mentioned I think a couple of times. I do have some energy damage, so it's not wasted. It also gives controller expertise, which works well with the gravity well, because I don't have that much sciencey improvements on there. So, you know, is that whole lot of access is just a defensive trait that might save your bot a few times. Then I have Fireball Escape, which helps me survive warp core breaches. Not that I want to be that close because of my own torpedoes, but you know. And I have Particle Manipulator. Now, this ship does have a few sources of exotic damage, so that works quite nicely. There is a trait that maybe I should get, kinetics, debuff kinetic resistance, that would be very useful on this build. So as I've said, like, some of those things might still be a work in progress. But it already works pretty nicely. And with all that said and done, we are going Elite Gala. And I'll show you off my weird creation. Alright, specializations. I'm currently running Intelligence Primary and Temporary Secondary. That's the kinda there. So, I mean, I put Cloak before the first attack here. I usually don't bother, but I mean, why not? And it's a bit of a light show because there is a lot of torpedo going on, and those torpedoes cause Chemosite to trigger. So maybe I should have warned you, sorry. There are lots of flashing lights here. Yeah, definitely are lots of flashing lights here.
Looks like our fight got them to notice us. Let's go over and ask if they're
look at all of those torpedoes in all sorts of different colors and the torpedo spreads. It's marvelous, isn't it? Now let's throw out a few consoles here. Yeah, let's just fill like the screen for explosion and look at all of those different color torpedoes, right? With the shared torpedo cooldown reduction, you really just fire those torpedoes. And there are the plasma torpedoes from the tractor beam. I'm adding like a few more torpedoes to this and things go. Let's give them like the proton eruption, cause why not? Teleport over there. Now, because the ship is so small and there's so many effects, sometimes I lose track of where my ship actually is. They're not pointing exactly the perfect way. But, you know. Oh. That asteroid's broke vision there for a bit. And yeah, it's colorful. It is certainly colorful. And see, I like that. You see here on the top, you see how the dual beam bank there fires from the top. And then you see like the hexacannon firing from the bottom there. And then you obviously see like the constant stream of torpedoes. And I mean, I'm obviously like not piloting this perfect with the ability use and so on, but you know, you get the thing. I never claim to be the best pilot, but this is just fun. So this is my little build here. I hope you enjoyed watching this. It's certainly a bit of a light show. And it's also maybe an inspiration to try out more weird builds. We have reached a point in Star Trek Online where there is just so much damage and there are so many sources of damage in the game that you can get really experimental with it. You don't have to just stick to the dual heavy cannons and the broadside or the, you know, the classical science or torpedo builds. You can really just like go nuts and experiment. And as you see, this works out. Obviously, there were some little bit more expensive things in this build, but you know, I don't think it was too extensive. So hope you guys enjoyed watching it, and I'll see you next time.